Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to a wet London. We have had heavy downpour in this part of London today, but seeing you after 2 weeks is a great pleasure. With us in our studios today we have Mr. Danish Khan. He is a PhD student at Oxford University, a journalist, a writer, and an observer of many things. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you. Since Danish, since we are here for the first time on our show, I would like you to share some information about yourself with our viewers.
Sure, thank you. So as you already said, I am a journalist, also someone who is researching capitalism at University of Oxford. And I'm also the president of the Indian Journalist Association, which is based here in London and has been in existence since 1947.
MashaAllah.
And I continue to write and comment on various affairs from UK and Europe to the media back in India.
Right. What is your main area of research?
So, as I said, I'm looking at capitalism in Bombay, colonial Bombay, because Bombay...
Is it for a particular period? Or?
Yes, it covers, of course, largely 19th and 20th century Bombay. So Bombay, or rather Mumbai now, was a very important center for vernacular capitalism. And by that I mean Bombay was one place in the entire subcontinent where the Indian businessmen had the industry in their control. Which was different as compared to Calcutta, where the British and the Scottish businessmen had the upper hand always. But Bombay was one place where the different communities, Parsis, Jains, the Khojas, Bohras, and the Memons and Bhatiyas, all of them had a very important and crucial role in the development of industry and trade.
Is it because they were better businessmen, or?
Well, yeah, you can say they were very sharp, and they were very traditionally into the trade business, and that's how they moved forward towards industry. And and it's a historical argument to make, which I look at some detail. But basically, the cotton industry and the opium before that was always in the hands of these local communities, which is why they.
There are very funny surnames like Botalwala, and then there's one also I read and I was amused, Ganjawala. See, when you said opium.
Yes.
But anyway, let's come down to today. I was looking at the calendar and the dates, and nearly 76 years ago, India and Pakistan were divided. The partition of India in 1947 was the change of political borders and the divisions of other assets that accompanied the dissolution of the British Raj. Between 500,000 and 2 million persons were perished as a result of the violence and upheavals. 800,000 women were abducted. It was the largest migration in human history and violence that is ever seen before. And this was not a sadistic film. It happened in real fact. You as a student of history, and you're talking about Mumbai. The Mumbai played a very vital role in the politics those days. Of course, Delhi was the capital, but Mumbai was the business capital, where it's like New York, the headquarters of financial headquarters.
That's true. That's true. I mean, it is the financial powerhouse that actually still tops the country in India in terms of tax and other aspects. And even then, as you rightly pointed out, I mean, Bombay had these merchant communities who were financing the Congress party. They were also giving money to the Muslim League, and it basically represented a territory where a lot of alternatives could be seen, because as I said, by virtue of the fact that they were also very cosmopolitan, no one single community had the upper hand, so to say. There were very small communities cutting across religious divide who were present, and that sort of created an atmosphere of close cooperation with much less recriminations and animosity as compared to the other provinces. Of course, there were problems, but not to the same extent as, say, the Punjab or the Bengal, as you will know, were divided.
Going back and thinking about that, so the point that you made, a very accommodative city, that must have been the reason for the what is called now is Bollywood industry. The film industry was established there. See, before that, before the partition, I think Lahore was a good center for filmmaking and all. See, but after 1947, Bombay, Mumbai now flourished, and all the filmmakers, producers and actors congregated there.
Yes, I mean that is true, and there are quite a few works on that. It is a work in progress, if I may say. A lot more scholarship needs to be done, but Bombay became the center because of a couple of interesting developments that happened. Of course, the migration you spoke about. So it became a confluence for capital, for the finance. It also became a center for the talent. So you had a lot of writers, Urdu writers, Hindi writers, who came to Bombay, who drifted to Bombay, who were writing for these films.
And particularly poets.
Poets, exactly. A lot of writers, Urdu writers and shairs, and they all came to Bombay from North, from Punjab, from different places, and that's where they met the capital and the entrepreneurial zeal of these producers, a lot of whom actually came from Punjab. And that confluence, that meeting ground, is what led to the birth of the Hindi film industry, and we all know how big it has now become.
Yeah. Yes. A lot of people will ask many questions about it, but where is Hindi film now going? Which way? Only today, I think I was watching one of the channels when the Prime Minister of India has claimed that within very soon, I think, India will be among the top 3 economies. How do you look at that statement?
Well, India is a growth story which no one can deny. We have a huge workforce where the population can be an asset as well, and something that
I think, might I add, a very qualified and technically able workforce.
Yes, that's true, and that is reflected in the terms of industries that have now taken shape because of India taking a key leading role in that. The IT industry, for example, just to give you one example, it's a flourishing industry. Bangalore, Hyderabad are now cities that are known for IT industries and for the the passion in which young entrepreneurs are entering the scene and have taken Indian companies across the world. Silicon Valley, all of them are populated now by Indian origin people, the heads of Google, Microsoft, you name it, and there is an Indian who also have studied from India, by the way. One of those IITs and IIMs that are present in India have provided the top administrative people to all these big corporations across the world. So it does say a lot about India as a powerhouse which is growing itself. I mean, very recently India overtook Britain, the former colonial power, as in the terms of economy. So it gives us some idea about which way India is headed. That's right.
True, very true. And we'll come to that later, but Alhamdulillah, we now have, as they say, that we have the London mayor is originally from Pakistan, and the UK Prime Minister is, some claim, also originally from Pakistan, but obviously,
well, Pakistan was not in existence when his grandfather.
True. Yes, of course.
Moved,
so if it Gujranwala or some place, but it was all India. That's what we are going to talk about. Then came 1971. Then there were problems in the eastern borders of India, and situations blew up and led to the creation of another country. But Punjab and Bengal, see, they're the most prosperous agricultural products wise and also population wise and also intellectually, see, very prosperous areas, and they were both divided, see. So that was a kind of a handicap for both the countries, see. But in case of India, maybe because of good leadership, we'll come to that later, or sincerity of those who followed them, that India has progressed from one step to another to a system, and it's a continuous course of progress. See, Bangladesh, on the other hand, in very short time, has also made huge progress, and economically, it's also doing very well. But Pakistan is a different story. We're not going to comparisons, but I'm going to talk about something else. You see that the creation of India and Pakistan as two countries, for division rather, it created a lot of heartache amongst seniors, see, like my grandfather, my great-grandfather, maybe your grandfather, and all that, see. And with all the good intentions, there seemed to be some sort of grudge, some sort of grievance against each other. If you imagine, during the Mughal period, see, India was one, and apart from troubles here and there, occasional, the people of different religion and people of different ethnic background, they lived together. If we had Holi there, we will have Shab-e Barat somewhere else, see. And it was very friendly a state of affairs, see. But after 1947, things changed, see. And a lot of people might accuse the leaders who were responsible, the top leaders, see. And the grudge and this sort of suspicion was passed on to the next generation, which is very much evident, particularly on playfields, you see. If there's a cricket match, if there's a football match, if there's a tennis match, or something like that, see, in one way or another, it is evident. Otherwise, it is not evident in terms of culture, see.
Yeah.
See, not singers, you see, they're all right, you see.
I mean, that is somehow a big tragedy, if I may say, because, I mean, look at Europe. They fought two world wars in less than a century, right? Within few decades, there were two major wars that were fought with Europe as the center, and widely divided. And
then came the European Union.
Absolutely. Look at the close economic cooperation, look at the close financial cooperation, and also, of course, the whole structure of the EU was that the continent needs to cooperate so that they can usher in good times for the people, for the economy. Now, unfortunately, that's something which has not been replicated in the Indian subcontinent, and it is a tragedy.
We have organizations like SAARC, but...
well, yes, we have, but as I said, that unfortunately it has not realized its potential as much as one will have expected it to be. I mean, there are various reasons for that, and it's not the occasion to go into that. But I think if there's one point that we can all think about, reflect, is the need for this closer cooperation. As you said, culture absolutely binds us. We have more or less the same sort of family values, systems, beliefs, eating habits, and so many things. Why is it that there should be still so much of animosity? That's something that politicians and the civil society needs to work. I'm sure people are working. It is a work in progress, but somehow, you know, it's like a very uncertain waves. Like there have been periods where it seems that countries are coming together.
Come closer,
Absolutely, but then something happens and it just all snaps. So it is an absolute tragedy that something like this has to happen, because also the partition that took place, it wasn't that every province or every city, area, town got divided. I mean, the partition of India is basically the partition of Punjab and Bengal. But of course, it had wide repercussions. Nobody can deny that. But in terms of physical separation, it was the Punjab and the Bengal provinces. And as I said, it is just a very sad reflection, because we have the European model right in front of us, where these countries fought world wars and they have still come together. So why not India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka come up effectively as a bloc and offer an alternative narrative?
Economic bloc, trade bloc, so that we can prosper together. And if there is a small country or is a weaker country, weaker economy, then that can be pulled up, you see. Having said that, you see, we are sitting here in London and we are talking about economic cooperation, but we are the ones who chose to join economic union, European Union, and then we chose to leave.
Come back, yeah, leave it. Yeah, I mean that's true, but that's the beauty of democracy. Coming out from EU, of course, not many people liked it, but that was the referendum. The results came out. But if you realize, it's not that we have cut all ties. There are so many links that still bind us. UK is still trying to figure out how best do we conduct our relationship. But at least it's a process, and it was an open process, and we all know the wider sort of thinking behind it. There was a referendum and the results came. We can discuss how good that was, whether it was required or not required. But that, as I said, is the beauty of democracy. As long as in our hearts we want close cooperation for the well-being of the humankind, that is what should guide us.
You think that something like European Union, European Economic Community, if we could have India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and some other countries, adjoining other countries, South Asian countries, then it could perhaps work out better for them and better for the region?
Well, absolutely. As I said, geography binds us. I know, as the saying goes, you can't change your neighbors. Whether you like it or not like it, India has to work with Pakistan, Pakistan has to work with Bangladesh, India, Pakistan have to work together. We also have Sri Lanka, Nepal is there as well. So it's a diverse set of countries, diverse set of people, but as you rightly pointed out, the need of the hour is closer cooperation, because that's the only way where we can forge alliances. And as I said, now there are so many issues, wider issues, climate change, for example, health, education. All of these are issues that need and demands closer cooperation, so that we can learn from each other, use our strengths, cover up our weaknesses, and move ahead. I mean, look at Europe, look at London. We have had nurses coming from all over Europe, right? Now the medical staff from this country is going forward to Australia, so it's all about demand and supply, but it's also about the economy and also the willingness of the countries to work together. I mean, why is it that Britain still continues to get doctors and other staff from Bangladesh, from Pakistan, from India, from Sri Lanka? Because there is a need, and they have made it easier for them to do it. I mean, it's difficult to think, for example, that there won't be any such situation in our region where we can make use of our strengths and our weaknesses.
Right.
And sitting at London, we can definitely discuss on those issues much more candidly and openly than perhaps one can do back home, because the temperature is much higher there.
Possibly because we have a better social welfare system here, see, because people retire, they rest at home. Not that they're forced to, but these days 70, 75, 80-year-old people are working. And whereas back on the subcontinent, you won't find 70-year-old person working really. Even if he owns the business, he'll probably blow in and blow out of his office once a day, and then that's it, see. So also the health plays a very dominant role here, and that is why we want people to retire at the very young age of 65, you see. But a man at 65-year-old man is healthy and
Well, yes, absolutely. I mean, so there are cultural issues underpinning that as well. I mean, I remember a senior cabinet minister in UK, for example, saying that because of the crisis in the NHS, as you might be aware, a lot of people, the elderly, still continue to be admitted in the hospitals because they don't have any place to go back.
Both Pakistan and India has suffered from the problems of dynastic politics. I see that in India, it's almost at the end of this dynastic politics, because the Nehru-Gandhi family hold on Congress is very loose now. You have interviewed Mr. Rahul Gandhi, so you will be able to know better. Also, a lot of people say that the dynastic rule does not allow budding leaders to come up. And in the beginning, when Mr. Nehru died, the choice fell on Mr. Lal Bahadur Shastri, you see. And a lot of people say that we do not create an organization, we create individuals. So after Nehru, Pandit Nehru, the choice of Lal Bahadur Shastri was quite unmatched. Similarly, in other countries, the same thing. When Mr. Jinnah died, there was nobody to really replace him. If he was like a mountain, others were not even molehills. How do you see that?
I mean, dynastic politics has been widely prevalent in South Asia. It's not just India, Pakistan, it's there in Bangladesh, it's there in Sri Lanka.
Yep.
I mean, it's there in Burma, we might say.
Malaysia.
Absolutely. And
Singapore.
Yes, I mean, and what about this country where, you know, the House of Lords are members because their fathers, their grandfathers had the privileges, and it continued. So it has been present, and it will remain present. But I think it's also about what is it that you are going to offer to the public. Do you have a model that the public will lap it up, and that is at at the core of your success or your failure, and how the people perceive you and your party to be? That is the important point. But yes, I mean, but if we compare, Jinnah died what? Within a year or two of Pakistan coming into existence, whereas Jawaharlal Nehru had a wider impact, and he left his mark.
And longer stay at the wicket.
Absolutely, and he stayed long for as the Prime Minister of the country, which is why we have had perhaps a different trajectory, some say. For example, military rule. I mean, India comes also from a region where there have been successive military regimes, dictatorships, military coup have taken place. That didn't take place in India, and that perhaps has got to do with the fact that Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was a very powerful Prime Minister, also had the legacy of the Congress Party, which took a key role in the freedom struggle. So with that sort of pedigree, Nehru could have his way through all those years and left his mark, and which is also why perhaps there was no military dictatorship in India. What happened after that, we all know. Indira Gandhi then took over. Of course, Lal Bahadur Shastri was there as well. She was equally popular. She continued the Congress Party rule, and then came Rajiv Gandhi. But there is the other story to it, to the politics of India. We also have had important regions, the states, and if you look at the politics of those states, it's not necessarily the same trajectory of one party or one family. India is a huge country. It's same as the European continent, some will say. And all these states had different parties, different individuals who ruled over those states. I mean, of course, within the overarching model of the Congress Party led by Pandit Nehru being the Prime Minister and the party at the center. In Pakistan, once Jinnah was gone, then you had successive military dictatorship that came over. The Al-haj, Yahya Khan and Ayub Khan. And so many, and so forth, and the last one being Musharraf, of course. So I mean, I don't think Pakistan so far has had a single civilian government finish its entire tenure of or 5 years. Unfortunately, they have been, and we all know the crisis that is going on in Pakistan. So it's just a reflection of that. No, but if we reflect on that and say that, so what does it say about dynastic politics? So you have differing models, and I can say we can't brush everyone with the same, in the same way, but of course, there needs to be internal democracy. There needs to be grassroots-led politics where people cutting across religion, region, language, or families ties are able to rise up and take charge.
You had a prime minister once in India. He didn't know Hindi.
Yes.
So, and Hindi being the state language.
The most dominant, one of the, yes, absolutely. So it's the diversity that has to be reflected. And I think if I
I think I cited that example as a part of vibrant democracy.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And you just mentioned, for example, Rishi Sunak earlier.
Yes.
I mean, look at United Kingdom. Rishi Sunak, an Indian heritage, Indian origin person, Prime Minister. We have had Priti Patel, Suella Braverman in top jobs. And so we had Sajid Javed and so many others. There are a lot of Bangladeshi origin people who are member of parliaments.
You have Mayor of London.
Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, again Asian heritage. So this is also a reflection of how diversity is good for politics, and especially if there are communities from around the world who live in the country, then the political elite needs to reflect that diversity. And that's very important.
Yeah, that's fair. How diversity is good for democracy, right? But how this diversity nurtures, how can it be planted? How does it, is it from education? Is it from broad-mindedness? It's not planted from the top, it grows. It develops.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And as I said that, I mean, it's also a different phase in a nation's journey.
Right.
Right. I mean, we know 100 years ago, Britain was a very different country. It was racist. Women didn't have the vote, for example.
Yeah.
That was not the case in the Indian subcontinent.
Right.
Right. The moment India, Pakistan came into existence, women were still voting. There was no movement for women to get the vote.
True.
But in Britain, there was a long drawn process, and it was only after that that women could vote in this country. It's unbelievable. I mean, the Tory party, they had their meetings where women were excluded, for example. Right? At the end moment when key decisions were to be taken, women were asked to move out of the committee rooms. And look where Britain is right now. So this was never the case in India, Pakistan, or in Sri Lanka. Right? We have had powerful women prime minister in Sri Lanka as well, and so so is the case in Bangladesh.
Yes.
So what does it say? I mean, Britain got a prime minister, a woman prime minister in what, 1980s? Margaret Thatcher came.
Yep.
Right? India already had Indira Gandhi. So as I said, that it's difficult to draw.
We have had three women prime ministers: Margaret Thatcher, Theresa May, and then somebody for a very short time.
Yes, absolutely. So as I said, it's very interesting to look at these aspects, but what is important is that respecting diversity and also the process of reflecting the diverse population in the political elite is a process which is very important and has to be done from the ground level. So if there is, for example, a huge culture of dynastic politics, if there is a culture of selecting people or having a remote control government, that's not a good reflection. And that's one good thing about United Kingdom. A prime minister today on the front bench is a backbencher the very next day. So that's something that we can surely learn a bit, perhaps.
But that cannot come overnight. That cannot come in 77 years. It has to be longer than that, because these values have to be developed and assimilated and understood and digested.
Yes, yes. I mean, of course, but if we look at the political culture, for example, look at UK. You have the MPs and some junior ministers still traveling in trains, a thing which is unthinkable. I mean, of course, there are logistics issues, but my point is, why is that VIP culture so ingrained in our DNA? I mean, the Britishers were there, and then they left. But look at the way they function here and look at the way we function here.
Well, we are probably following them the way they function there.
Absolutely, but then once they left and once we got our freedom, we still have this huge gap between the political elites and the common people.
Yeah, we can't shake it off. We think that we will be behaving like the Commissioner Saab, the DM district magistrate, and you know, there are so many stories about these. You remember that doctor? What was the name of that very famous film? With Dr. Aziz was the character. I forget to say. Ziamuddin was.
Was it based on E.M. Foster's book?
Yes.
Right.
I forget the name of the book.
Passage to India.
Passage to India, yes. See?
Absolutely.
And in that, see, the same things. See, the people behaving like, in the attempt to behave like the English, they behave like misfits. We have been talking about India-Pakistan partition 76 years ago. And we talked about the pleasures, the pangs, and the progress that the countries have made. And a byproduct of the partition of India in 1947 was the 1971 creation of Bangladesh, to our great pleasure. Economically, India has done very well. It has a large number of billionaires. Business is booming. India seems to be providing technocrats to the world, as we were talking about. Situation of Pakistan is rather strange. One step forward, and as somebody said, two steps backward. And it reminds me of a very funny saying of a politician, that he is happy as long as he is in the driving seat. It doesn't matter whether the car is going backwards or forwards. So a lot of people would like to be in the driving seat. It sounds like a dance, but it's a painful economic truth that both the countries, born at the same time, became independent at the same time, have gone in two different ways. What is the secret of India's economic development and progress?
I mean, as you will know, it's not something that can be done overnight. And when the division took place, when the partition took place, there were also some structural issues that worked against Pakistan, for example, and worked very well for us, for India. And so in the British Army, a large section of the British Army came from the province of Punjab.
Right.
And when Pakistan came into being, that elite all had the upper hand. And of course, we spoke about how Jinnah passed away too soon, and that created a good enough
a political vacuum.
Absolutely, that created a huge political vacuum, a space for the army to come in. Liaquat Ali was killed as well, you know, an original Muslim League, so to say, close confidant of Jinnah. And the Pakistan army then started having a far wider role for itself. And once something like that takes place, it is very difficult to have the political freedom that is required in a democratic setup for a wider development to take place. In the case of India, the Congress Party under the leadership of Jawaharlal Nehru laid the foundations for the educational institutes like the IITs, the Indian Institute of Management, similarly scientific you know, institutes. All of those were set up over the next few years after India's independence, and that sort of laid the ground. And also, of course, we can't forget the British gift of the English language, which gave benefit to all of the Indian subcontinent,
right.
And India made the most out of it. Because of course, there was a huge sort of struggle about which language or what language should be the national language of India. And you know, India is a diverse country, so we had the southern states where Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, again, very beautiful and old languages, who also had a greater say in the whole process. And as a result, English continued to be the linking language, the major language.
True,
and
true.
that sort of gave birth to a middle class, good, very well conversant in English, who could access education in English, use this higher technical institutes which laid the ground for for the development in the IT sector. And India is reaping the benefits
of that. See, now this you mentioned IIM and IIT, triple IT. See, this was established when the two institutes. When were they established?
So Indian Institute of Technology and Indian Institute of Management are higher end institutes, basically catering to people once they finish their secondary education.
They're catering to the industry.
Yes, so they are very specific. So the IITs are like the temples of science and technology, where people with a very creative bent of mind in the science stream use IITs and do further research, and its very close connection with the industries has helped bring out whole generations of people who became entrepreneurs. So for example, all these top-notch executives in Google, Microsoft, and also the entire IT industry, we can say that in some ways the IITs were the birthplace for having all of these key people who went on to these top-notch companies. Similarly with the IIMs, they are into management studies, very well sought after institutes. So they created this culture of high-tech, world-class education that created the groundwork for a workforce which has now spread all over the world. And some will argue that because of this insistence, the primary education somehow left behind. But we can only look now and pass judgment, but that's what it was. All of these were started during the reign of the Congress government after independence, and of course since then IITs and IIMs have increased in numbers as well, and it's a huge challenge and struggle to get into those institutes. So the point I'm trying to make is, because of these institutes and this general culture of the English education, that helped the Indian subcontinent and India particularly to provide workforce to facilitate immigration to other countries. So right from the 50s and 60s, for example, UK has had doctors and engineers who have come from India, integrated here, and then of course that created further links and chains which led to waves of migration and contributed to India's well-being.
Well, migration of technically qualified people contributing to the economy for the countries, and obviously in turn contributing to the personal economy, that's very good to see. But how do you see the migration of people from every walk of life, and they're just trying the urge to get out of the country? It's not just specific to India. It's in Pakistan, it's in Bangladesh. You see, Bangladesh is about 2.5 million workers in Saudi Arabia. You see, they have population to send abroad, and it's useful for the country so that they can get money. Remittances are sent. That's very good to see. But on top of that, see, there are, I'm sure that you are here, so you come across news stories. Every day we are getting people trying to get into this country somehow, whether on boats, trucks, lorries. Somehow they want to come in. See.
I mean, so we spoke about the good sides of what high-class education and getting
these are not very technically high-class.
Absolutely. So that's what I was coming at. So we discussed the IITs, IIMs, and similarly educational institutes of excellence in Pakistan and Bangladesh and Sri Lanka perhaps. But there is also, of course, a huge disparity, and there are people, there are regions which are not as well developed as some are, and of course that leads to this yearning for a better life, this yearning for a better tomorrow, and that's what pushes people to leave their own country, to leave their settings in search for better opportunities. And that's what we are seeing that explains why a lot of people want to enter a country like UK or US, for example, so that they can improve.
Well, these days only 3 countries they are going to: UK, US, or Canada.
That's true. Yes. So it's basically the model that attracts them, because there is social security. They know that the governments will take care of them. They also know that if they have children, they can access far greater healthcare, better education facilities, and all of those factors combine to drive them towards the Western economies. And as you said, Canada, US, and UK, and Europe, of course, remain high on the list, and that's exactly why, because it's difficult for larger countries to reach to the lowest common denominator. There could be various other reasons as well. There could be religious persecution, there could be wars, there could be discrimination against particular communities, a lot of factors.
That's understandable, But why is it that India, being such a successful country economically, cannot provide the same sort of, not exactly, but at least a modicum of social welfare system to its own teeming millions?
Well, that's a good question, because that's just that the country is too big and it has not reached that stage where it can afford to do that. The resources are still scarce. As I said, that lot more still needs to be done. The governments have done, but there is definitely a lot more that is required to be done. We still have poverty, we still have regions that are not well developed, we still have areas where the government needs to do more to reach out to the lowest common denominator. And as I said, because of this huge country and so many people, regions to cover, it is not an easy job. But it also, of course, perhaps tells a lot about the model of development. Could there be another approach? I don't know. Possibly yes, where we could have a far more inclusive growth, where we could also help the underrepresented and people in regions which are far off, where there needs to be more development and more healthcare facilities, more education facilities that needs to go, which has not taken place. So,
well, I was looking at the news yesterday, and it said that 77,000 asylum seekers have applied to this country, and this is 30% more than the same period last year. I hope that we next year we will have a different world, a better world, and a more prosperous world, and more prosperous world, and an important world, and a good world which will look after its own people. Thank you very much for being with us. See you next week. Bye-bye. Thank you.